If you're thinking about adding a greenhouse to your backyard, you're probably not just looking for a flashy metal frame or a list of dimensions. You want something that will actually turn your seed packets into thriving plants, stay standing through a rainy weekend, and not drain your wallet the first time you open the door. That hesitation is real, especially when you've seen a half-built structure wobble in the wind or watched a cheap cover melt under a summer sun. The question becomes, can I find a greenhouse that's reliable enough for the long haul, easy enough to work with day after day, and worth the money I'm spending? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Palram's Canopy Snap and Grow 8-foot by 20-foot model tries to answer those concerns. It's a polycarbonate greenhouse that promises a crystal-clear, virtually unbreakable roof and walls, UV protection, a decent amount of growing space, and some practical extras like double-wide doors and adjustable roof vents. Those sound good on paper, but let's unpack what they really mean when you start planting tomatoes, herbs, or even a few dwarf fruit trees. First off, the material. Polycarbonate isn't the cheapest plastic, but it's a step up from the thin polyethylene film you see on pop-up garden tents. In real life, that translates to a roof that can shrug off hail or a stray branch without cracking. The virtually unbreakable claim holds up when you test it with a simple tap. There's a nice, firm feel, and the panels don't flex like thin glass. The UV-blocking coating is another practical benefit. After a season of sun-baked afternoons, many growers notice their plants are less stressed when the greenhouse filters out harsh UV rays, which can scorch leaf tissue. For a backyard gardener who wants a steady temperature without having to constantly shade the interior, that protection can mean less wilting and more consistent growth. Space is another factor that often trips people up. The canopy offers 164 square feet of floor area and about 6.8 feet of headroom at its highest point. That's enough for roughly 20 medium-sized tomato plants, a couple of rows of lettuce, and a small potting bench. In my own test setup, I arranged 3 rows of raised beds, each about 4 feet wide, and still had room to walk comfortably between them. The height is especially helpful when you're using taller plants like cucumbers or small fruit trees. Those vines can climb without being cramped, and you can reach the top without a ladder. If you only plan to grow a few herbs on a balcony, you might find the footprint a bit generous, but the extra room also gives you flexibility if your gardening ambitions grow over time. What really sets this greenhouse apart is the door and vent system. The double-wide doors open fully, which makes moving carts, wheelbarrows, or even a small workbench in and out a breeze. On windy days, the lockable latch keeps the doors from flapping, reducing wear on the hinges. The 4 adjustable roof vents are strategically placed to promote airflow when the temperature climbs. In my garden, I set 2 vents opposite each other, opening them a quarter turn during midsummer afternoons. The result was a noticeable drop in internal temperature, a few degrees cooler than a completely sealed greenhouse without sacrificing the light that the polycarbonate panels let in. That kind of passive climate control can be a game changer if you don't want to invest in an electric vent or heater. Of course, there are some trade-offs you should be aware of before you click Add to Cart. The polycarbonate panels, while strong, are heavier than simple film covers. That means the frame needs a bit more grunt to stay stable, and the assembly can feel like a small workout. The Snap and Grow system is designed to be user-friendly, with pre-drilled holes and interlocking components, but the sheer size of the panels, each one spanning a few feet, requires at least 2 people to lift and align safely. If you're a solo gardener without a willing helper, you might need to rent or borrow a dolly to get the panels onto the base. Additionally, the gutters that come with the unit are functional, but they have a modest capacity. In a heavy downpour, the water can splash over the edges and wet the soil inside, which isn't ideal for seedlings that prefer a dry start. Some owners have added a simple rain barrel to catch overflow, but that's an extra step you might not have thought about. Another practical consideration is the warranty. Palram offers a 5-year limited warranty, which is fairly standard for greenhouse kits of this size. It covers defects in the polycarbonate panels and the frame, but it doesn't extend to damage caused by improper assembly or extreme weather beyond the design limits. In other words, if a windstorm exceeds what the structure is rated for, the warranty won't be your safety net. That's why it's important to anchor the greenhouse securely using the supplied ground stakes and, if you live in a windy region, adding extra bracing or a tie-down system. So, who should buy this?